Welcome to our special New Year's Day broadcast of the Good Grief Believer podcast. I'm your host, Julie Craig, and I am joined by my friends Daree Blake and Chris Frazier.
Hello.
Hi.
So we have some things that we wanted to talk to our community about, and then we're going to talk a little bit about New Year's, the holidays, how our grief has changed over the years since we've had our original loss experiences. But before we go into that, I just wanted to say that 2026 is going to be an exciting year. We have a property in northern Idaho, not too far from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's beautiful out here, a place where we are planning to hold some retreats where those who have experienced similar grief can gather and talk about their experiences and learn from others with expertise and share and lift each other. We're going to be doing that at a date soon to be determined. We haven't put that on the calendar yet, but I think we'll start with having some groups that have similar experiences together. And Daree and Chris, you've been doing this for a while. Maybe, Chris, could you talk a little bit about some of the events you've had in the past out here at the river?
Sure. So we actually work with Deepwater's Bereavement to do a infant and child loss vigil and pregnancy loss. It's usually held in October. And it's just a small opportunity, there's usually only a few people, maybe 10 tops, to just come and remember their babies and just kind of take that time to be with other people who have experienced a similar loss. And it's just a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, thank you. I have loved seeing the pictures from the retreat. What have you liked about those, Daree?
I think it's been lovely to have people that are a little further out from their loss and then some that are really fresh in their grief, and just being able to connect and talk to people who've been through it. And then it was really beautiful to see some dads connect last time, and dads kind of get left out of the conversation sometimes. And so it's really nice to see them connect and just like, how do we get through this? How do we support our older kids? How do we, asking those questions in a really safe and comforting just environment.
That's wonderful. I know one of the things that impacted me so much was to see when you had taken little hearts. I think it must have been rice paper, something that disintegrates in the water, little paper hearts where you write the names, either the names of your babies or a quality like hope or faith or courage. And then those were spread on the water, and it just such a beautiful, beautiful visual of letting that grief be carried away.
Yeah, they're wildflower seeds.
Is that what it is? Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we can reach more people who might be feeling isolated in their grief experiences, know that there's a place where they can gather and be with others who understand what they've been through and offer some hope that they won't always feel so alone or discouraged. So that will be coming up, and we'll announce that on our Instagram page for Good Grief Believer and our Facebook page. And if there's anyone who's interested in being a part of that, please contact us directly at goodgriefbeliever@gmail.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, GOODGRIEFBELIEVER @gmail.com. And we'll get you set up. And that brings me also to another point, which is that we have had such a great variety of guests on this podcast over the last 2 years. It's almost 2 years that we've been doing this. And we've heard from so many people who've been willing to share their stories of loss and how they have found positive ways to manage the grief and to move forward with life. But we are always, always interested in hearing from others. So I would say if you or someone you know has been through a particular loss experience, and it's not always death. We all know and acknowledge that not all grief is connected to the physical death of a person. There are many kinds of grief, and grief affects every single person at some point in their lives. And devastating loss, devastating grief is a common human experience. And so we like sharing those stories with others to give hope and a feeling of not being alone. So anyone who would like to share those stories, I would invite in the same way, send us an email at goodgriefbeliever@gmail.com, and let's talk about that. We have some exciting ones coming up in the next couple months. I'm really happy for those who've been willing to share. We've heard the last few months from several professionals, people in the funeral industry, for example, counselors. I will soon be interviewing a neuroscientist who will talk about grief and its effect on the brain and ways that some people actually require neurotherapy treatment to work through the physical aspects of grief, which are real. We've all experienced that. So there's just a lot of exciting things coming on the horizon. I'm excited that we'll be able to talk more about that. So let's dive in to what we decided would be a good New Year's message. The three of us have been working together now for a while, and Chris and Daree do more things behind the scenes. You usually hear my voice. You've heard Chris in some of these interviews, which has been really neat. And but today we're going to talk a little bit about our original grief event and what kind of brought us down this road of being more public with our grief and finding ways to share this message of hope and grief management with others. And so I'd like to start with Daree, because in a way, Daree's kind of our grief grandma. Daree had her loss experiences chronologically before Chris, and then Chris before me. And it's been interesting to see how what Daree has learned and experienced directly affected and helped Chris's experiences directly affected and helped me, and we're still all strengthening each other. So Daree, would you please start with a little recap of your story and your journey?
Yeah, I'd love to, Julie. Thank you. That's funny to be called grandma. No, that's okay. So my loss journey started way back, actually, in 2005. I had my first miscarriage, and then just a few months later, I had a second miscarriage with a live birth. So I had twins, and I lost one. And then a few years later, I had a miscarriage, and all in between, I had babies too. So my journey's been really fraught to become a mother. And then in 2011, we found out we were having twins in October. So we were going to be delivering in January. Well, it was supposed to be May. And then January 11th of 2012, we had our twins. And Oliver passed away after one day. And Emma spent 4 months in the NICU since they were born 4 months early. That journey of having those early losses kind of taught me how to grieve a little bit, and that strengthened me through that NICU time when I was hoping that Emma would survive and grieving the loss of Oliver. I learned a lot about grief from those early losses, and then even more through Oliver's loss. Just the complexity of holding both and that sadness and that joy. And from there, I've just learned that the more open I can be, the more people share things with me. And it's like a relief that they are able to do that. That I'm a safe place for people to share their hard things. And I'm really proud of that fact. I didn't have a lot of that in my early time. I didn't know a lot of people who had losses, and it was really taboo to talk about. I had a lot of people tell me to just focus on the good, or at least you have other children, or just really hard things, or why aren't you back to normal yet? And that's my favorite.
I actually asked you that?
Yeah. And so I just had to learn that and teach people. I've spent a lot of my grief journey educating people about grief. That I'm a changed person. I'm not going to go back to that person I was before. But even Chris will attest to the first time she met me, I just like, bleh. I told her everything. And, I just found it hard to leave out my other children when I talked about my kids. To leave out the things that were just as much part of me as the ones you could see. And I do believe that heaven is closer to me. I feel like I'm here, but I have so much of my heart in heaven that I feel like it's just a veil away. And it's been a blessing to me.
I love that. I love how positive you are. And I love, even though it was so hard for you, that you became a grief educator even as you were grieving, because it was needed.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's interesting that when you said you shared everything early on with Chris, that was before Chris ever had her experience, right? Because you guys were friends for a while.
Yeah. So her first time she came to my house, she came over for a play date. And I just shared, blah, there you go, this is me. And if you can't handle it, sorry.
So Chris, how did you experience that the first time you met her? What was your reaction inside?
So this is in 2015, and my loss happened in 19. So we had been friends for a few years before my loss. So just to have that piece of information. So when she first told me all of these things, I was like, oh my gosh, this poor woman, and holy cow. And also, right, like usually when somebody tells you their right. And usually when somebody tells you their whole life story on day one, it's a little like, you might be a little too much drama for me, like it's kind of off-putting, right? When somebody just launches into the whole thing. But with her, I was like, okay, all right, that sucks. And I'm sorry, sad for you. I wasn't really sure like what to do with this information, because prior to, my only loss experiences had been, I lost a grandma when I was in college. My dad died a few years after Seth and I were married. So I had close losses, but never in the realm of parenting. I didn't have any kids yet. Well, I had Sydney. But that was it. Like I never had a miscarriage. I never had any I just had one easy pregnancy. And you know what I mean? Like it was just, I was very naive. And so I just was like, okay, I'm going to file that piece of information away and just know that if I'm going to be friends with Daree, this is what I need to know. Right. And, she kind of invited me in right away. She, at the time was really heavily involved in March of Dimes. So she'd always do a big yard sale. And then there was the actual physical march, which is a walk, and so she invited me to come be part of her team and come do all of these things. And I'll admit, like prior to my own loss, doing all of these things, I was doing it to support her because I knew it was important to her. But I felt a little bit like I was posing, like I didn't belong with this group of women who have been through these horrible things. And here I am with my happy little baby and everything's fine and, hunky dory. And so I felt a little bit like I didn't belong. And I felt like I was sort of like encroaching on their sacred space,
Do you still believe that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not now. No.
Yeah. What would you say to that person who is simply a sympathizer?
Thanks for being here. Like, great for you that you haven't had to walk this road, but thanks for being here anyway. And, supporting us that have been here, thanks for coming along for the ride. So fast forward, in 2019, I remember thinking this whole entire time too, because we had talked about having another kid, and I was like kind of nervous because there was some post-traumatic stuff that happened after Sydney was born. It was just a really tough recovery and some things. And so I was like, okay, when I do finally decide that we're going to try again and have another baby, at least I know Daree has been through literally everything. So she can just guide me through whatever happens, no matter what, like this I just felt
before.
This before, like I was just entertaining the idea of having another baby. And I thought to myself, no matter what happens, if I should have some kind of complication or whatever, like, I'm really grateful that I have a friend that I know I can count on to be there, whatever happens, whether the baby's totally fine, whether I have complications. Because, after I had Sydney, I was like, okay, what if the next baby is a miscarriage? What if this? What if that? Like, there was just a lot of like anxiety around having a second child,
right.
Especially after hearing stories like Daree's. I was like, oh, that can happen, and so I felt safe. Right. And so, we found out I was pregnant. And Sydney caught me in the bathroom as I was taking the test, and I just sort of blurted out. She was like, Mom, what are you doing? So then she ran up and got Seth. So then the three of us have this like exciting dance party in the bathroom because we're having another baby. Yay. And then I was like, oh, wait, we're having another baby. Like it kind of just sank in. And then I was like, can I please tell Daree? Because like we were going to tell our family, like it was still really early. And Seth was like, yeah, it's okay. You can tell her, but let's just keep it between, like nobody else, but you tell her at least, yeah. And so I told Daree, and then that was it. Right. And then I had started to kind of spot in between, like after that. And so then I was like, oh man, I'm like freaking out here. And so just having that person that had been through all of it, but because she chose to share it from day one, right? She was so open about it, that I felt safe enough to talk to her about it and to feel like she was going to be there for me, no matter what this was going to look like, Right. And then, throughout the diagnosis of Emily and all of the finding out of the things, and literally through the whole process, I felt like she sort of shepherded me through stuff, and helped me recognize like this feeling is normal, or brace yourself for this one because it's coming, like it was sort of like grief coaching, like she just knew what to say because she had been there, and knew what not to say and what to do and how to help me ask for help and how to help me, like she said earlier, like training your family on what to say, like training others. And I felt like I had somebody who had been through it to kind of help me navigate it, and that was just pre-birth, like navigating this pregnancy and what this was going to look like. And then when Emily was born, Daree was there that day. She wasn't our doula at the time because she was helping take care of Sydney. But she was there at the hospital on site, and she helped us after we got Sydney taken care of. She helped us with pictures and, different things to think about and because she had experienced an infant loss and like what it was going to look like to have your baby, like if Emily had died right at birth or shortly after, what was that going to look like? Preparing me for what her face would look like and how long I had with her before her body started to deteriorate. And like just all of these things that you don't think about or don't even know to think about because you've never been through this before. Having somebody who had been that exact road, was invaluable. And then a plus side to have it be someone that I was already close to,
And Chris, just to clarify for those who don't know, because I think we might have skipped this detail. You knew that Emily's birth was was going to have complications before. So it's not like Daree showed up to a healthy birth just in case something had gone wrong.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We found out at 18 weeks that Emily had trisomy 18. And so going into the rest of the pregnancy and into delivery, we knew that there was a chance that she wasn't going to survive. I mean, every day after that was, okay, what if she dies today? You know, like we didn't know how long I was going to be pregnant. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to get to 40 weeks and then we're going to have this baby. And then, you know, it was a question mark every single day. And so there was a lot of stress and fear and anxiety around the pregnancy itself. And then getting to the delivery, you know, is she going to be born alive or not? What is that going to look like? How long is she going to live after she's born? You know, it's just that whole process was so much stress and unknowns. And Daree was there through all of it to kind of help us and guide us and buffer, you know, to think of all the things that we hadn't thought about or wouldn't otherwise think about because we'd never been through this before, you know. She's the one that told us about Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which is a specialized photography group that comes and takes pictures in cases where the child is either stillborn or might be stillborn or whatever. Like I never would have known about that service if Daree hadn't told me.
Is this a local?
It's a nationwide. I think I might be a nonprofit. It's a nationwide group, and photographers can become part of that. And then they're you like search for Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographers in my area, and then they tell you who's close. So I think there's like 2 or 3 in our area.
Comes to the hospital and takes pictures.
Yeah.
And Daree, did you have that?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Those are the only pictures we have really with Oliver.
Wow. Wow. So what this really underscores is how valuable it is to once you have had a grief experience, a grief loss, that you have been able to, you know, come to some peace with, how important it is to then share with others, because it creates a network that a person can go to of their friends, their family. Yeah, it's not always been the case that people have been encouraged to share their loss with others. For so long, the prevailing thought was it's best not to burden others with your difficult experiences, with your pain. And yet it's interesting that sharing it does really mitigate a lot of the feelings of loss and grief. And it brings others into a conversation that they most likely in some way at some point will have. Like I said before, every person will experience some kind of loss or grief. If you live long enough, you will experience it firsthand. You know, even if experiencing the loss of someone that you appreciate, you know, their loss or grief, you know, will have that. So I love the openness and the sharing. Yeah, Daree.
I just wanted to add that you know, we're called upon to mourn with those who mourn. And if we don't share that we're sad, or we don't share the hard things in our lives with people, they can't know that we need them to mourn with us. And it's just a missed opportunity for connection. It's a missed opportunity for growth, because you can grow together. I used to say that I wish we could just wear on our chest like our hard things, like a big sign that says, I am going through something really, really hard right now, and I just need some extra love. Just because it's so hard to open up and say that. I need help. I need someone to lean on for a little while. I need someone to take something off my plate so that I can just be sad for a little while. And I wish there was a better way. A little bubble above our heads or something.
Can you imagine? And then those poor people that are empathetic to everything would just go home and cry every day, like, oh. But it's a good reminder, especially during the holidays. It's a good reminder as we experience joy, or we're, you know, happy. it's a good reminder to be aware that there may be people around us who are having a devastating experience because their grief or their loss is really fresh. So to be thoughtful and aware, think about the people in your acquaintanceship who may be experiencing a recent divorce or are having health problems that limit their ability to just live the life that they want. Those who may have lost someone close to them in the previous year, and this is their first holiday alone. It's always good just to have a little awareness for them and bring them into a place where they can feel love and kindness, and that they're not invisible.
Or that they're not a downer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if they are, it's okay. We can talk about that for a few minutes, while we have eggnog. It's all right.
Well, and I feel like if you've been open and sharing these things, then people are more apt to feel that way around you, right? Like, that's why I felt okay to talk to Daree about stuff, because I knew that she had been through it, and, she could handle whatever feeling I was going to be feeling, that I could just be in all of it and be okay. And I think that's part of the reason why she and I wanted to become birth and bereavement doulas, and why we're doing this grief coaching certification together, is because we know how important it is to give that to other people, and to help them have some kind of guidance to get through this, like, hey, I've been here, let me show you how this works. Like, and not that there's a set way, but just so that there's somebody who gets it, because somebody who gets it is just super invaluable when you're going through tough stuff, Well,
I want to say about the two of you, you're both really positive, functioning people. So it's not like this grief follows you like a black cloud everywhere you go, and you're just sharing, I lost a child. It's not like that. I think the magic that happens is that you are approachable and real because you've been through these things, but also when somebody is going through something fresh, they can look at you, they can see, oh, I've seen her have joy with her children. I've seen that she's finishing school. I've seen that she functions and works and has hobbies and gets up in the morning and that, that she's got these positive things going. I've also seen both of you cry when you've talked about your babies and your experiences. So it's for what happened for me that was really, really pivotal was just a few days after my husband passed away. And I'll share a little bit about my grief story, but a few days after he passed away, a good friend of mine who'd been my hiking partner for several years that I really respect and admire, and she's just fun and energetic and such a joy to be around. She came and she put her arm around me and told me about her loss when her husband had passed away, and waking up every morning just feeling sad. But then one day, for her, it was a very pivotal, just one day she woke up and the sun was shining and she looked outside and said, how lucky am I that I was married to Joe? And for me to know her on the level of a functional, normal, happy human being who also had a devastating experience was a really important factor for me when I was feeling like I will never feel happy again. I will never feel joy again. That couldn't be true because I was sitting here with my friend who I know had a full life, and yet she had been through loss. So it gave me hope. It gave me this little glimmer that there would be a day when I wouldn't feel as awful as I did that day. So, when my story goes back to when I met my late husband, Steve, and I was in my late 20s. I wanted to be married. I wanted to be a mother. I was, seeing a lot of friends having had that experience, and I just hadn't been able to meet anybody. And then I was introduced to him by his younger brother, who was married to my cousin. They knew me and they knew him. He was recently widowed. He was young. He was 33. I was like 26. And he had 2 young children. And I remember when I was introduced to him and talking to him, being so fascinated that he could go through something so hard, so devastating, and yet not be bitter. He just, he was grieving, but he wasn't bitter. And that was fascinating to me. And so my natural curiosity was I wanted to know everything about his experience. And I think that was part of what really bonded us together. Was I wasn't afraid of his hard experiences. I wasn't afraid of the love and the relationship that he had with his wife. And so we had this bond early on over being able to openly talk about grief and death. And so I was prepared with numerous conversations. And then there was a time when he got really sick. We didn't know if he would survive. It was really scary. It was a year and a half of just the whole world stopped while we focused pretty exclusively on trying to figure out what he had. And once we had a diagnosis and a proper form of treatment, he did really well for a long time. And then shortly before he died, the treatment that he was on, he developed antibodies to, and it failed, and the disease just ravaged through him. And so after he passed away, which was devastating, we'd been married for almost 25 years. It was a beautiful, beautiful marriage. We were blessed with 2 more children, and watching them experience the loss of such a wonderful, wonderful dad, that was an additional loss, right? But I had a really strong support system in place before I even experienced that. And I had a strong faith in Christ, belief in his resurrection, belief that we would be reunited again, and those things were really pivotal in helping me work through. But the really acute grief in the moment, you feel it, no matter your faith, no matter the friends, the family, it's there. You have to feel it. It's an important thing to experience and work through. But I remember at some point, maybe around 6 months after he passed away, I had a very strong impression that I should be using my experience and my resources to reach out to others who were grieving, to bring an awareness, that same experience that I had had with my hiking friend, that you will not always feel this way. I felt compelled to share that message, and that's how this podcast started. So that's how I'm here sitting in this chair, is from that loss. So I wanted us to talk a little bit about our early experiences with the holidays and with this idea of New Year's, because I know I had, some experiences with that, and I wanted to hear yours as well, and maybe give some encouragement to anybody who has been recently going through this, that there's some hope. So Daree, you want to start?
Sure.
You've been doing this longer than the rest
A long time.
than us.
Yeah. So I remember the first. Everything about my grief, like I call it my grief season, is around Christmas and New Year's, and it starts about October, and then it goes through Oliver's death date, January 12th, and I just have come to recognize that as my grief season, and I know that things are going to be a little extra hard, and that I'm going to need to say no to things that maybe I want to do, and that it's okay to like just be sad. So that's my time. And then usually about his death date, I start feeling that lift. And so that kind of goes along with Christmas season and then the hope in the new year for me. And the first year was really hard. Every year is a little bit hard, but it's the first couple of years were really hard since Emma is so tied to everything around Oliver. So I have times where I'm faking it. Mm-hmm. I am present, but I am pasting that smile on, and I am showing her that I love her, and I'm showing my other kids I love them, but I am empty inside. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt for a long time, on their birthday, on Christmas, on New Year's, all of that season. Slowly that has been able to shift. It's gotten a little easier to not have to fake it, and that lifts a little bit. And so, but I also give myself grace that if I am feeling that way, it's okay too, because my kids know I love them. They know that I'm showing up and I'm doing the best I can. And that's kind of how the progression kind of went. I had to start recognizing, because I knew that if I put off that, letting myself feel it, that my grief season would extend and it would just be hard longer. Mm-hmm. And so I just honor it, and then that way my body can move through it, because my body's remembering all of the things, and that it's okay to let myself sit in it, and then I can move forward.
I love that, Daree, on so many levels. I love that you recognize to me, it sounds like a hibernation period. I immediately thought of a bear going into the cave and hibernating, which is it's a really important thing, right? Yeah. But I also love the selflessness in you, that there are times when you recognize, for your children's sake, that you need to show up, and you do put on a face for what is appropriate in that moment. And it sounds to me like you're navigating the balance between how often to do that, when to just, recuse yourself and be alone. But I love that, because it's an acknowledgement to what your body and your spirit needs, but also an acknowledgement of your responsibilities as a mother.
Yeah.
And so I love the combination of that, because I think either one to an extreme would not serve you or your family long term.
Yep, I feel that way too. There are years that I've let myself just stay in bed as much as possible, even like 8 years out, mm-hmm. because I wasn't honoring those feelings, and I was like trying to shove them down, and then it would just make it so it was so hard to get out of bed that I just wouldn't. Right. And so I just learned through the years that this works for me, and acknowledging it and honoring other people's losses around this time helps me to get out of my internal sadness, mm-hmm. and share other people's, lighten their load a little bit. And that helps me feel more productive and happy. Gives a little joy. And so just that trial and error of figuring out what helps me and what makes it harder, and just trying to navigate that.
I love that. How about you, Chris?
I was just going to say, Daree would never tell you this, but part of the reason what she just said about like trying to lift others' loads is every Christmas she gets ornaments and makes them for people that we both know that have suffered loss, whether it's infant loss. She has a couple neighbors that have lost loved ones, and every year she remembers and takes ornaments to these people. And that's her way of, helping to lighten that load. So she would never tell you that, but I'll tell on her.
I love that.
So for me, Christmas wasn't so bad. I mean, kind of. I remember thinking, wow, this last Christmas I was pregnant and now I'm not. So that was rough. And like recognizing I was supposed to have a baby here and now I don't. We were at Seth's parents' house that year. So it helped to have a lot of family around and there was lots of distractions and things happening. But I definitely remember feeling that heaviness, and like Daree said, kind of empty, like I'm pasting on a smile, but inside I feel empty, someone's missing and things are not as they should be, and just that feeling of trying to reconcile reality versus what I wanted to happen and what I thought should have happened. We did the first year we did something called the stocking project, and we made a special stocking for Emily. And I put out to all of my friends and family and anybody that wanted to write her a letter. And we put them in her stocking. And then on Christmas Day, after, all of the hubbub of presents and excitement and everything, Seth and Sydney and I sat down together in a quiet moment and just read through all of the letters. And that was really, really special and made us feel so connected to her, and also grateful that others were acknowledging our grief. We felt validated because other people took the time to recognize that we were missing someone.
Right.
And that was really, really special. We kept them all in a binder. I still have all of those letters, and occasionally I'll go back and just kind of revisit and remember that people remembered our baby. And I think especially when it comes to pregnancy and infant loss, like you said, death is taboo in general, and we don't talk about it. But especially, I feel like there's a different stigma around babies and infant pregnancy and infant loss. Like it's just not talked about very often. And so for so many people to recognize and acknowledge that loss and that experience was just really meaningful to our family. And then a couple of weeks or, a few days later was New Year's, and we were at our friend's house and everything was great and fine. We were having fun. And, it wasn't even really heavily on my mind about Emily or grief or anything. Like we were just having a good time. We were playing games and waiting for midnight to arrive, and then all of a sudden at the stroke of midnight, I just had this wave of grief, just this totally unexpected sneaker wave, as I like to call them, just hit me out of nowhere. And I was like, what is going on? And it was because 2019 was the only year that Emily existed. And so dawning into 2020 felt like I was leaving her behind, and so that was really unexpected and really hard for me. And, so some people may also feel that, depending on when their loss was or whatever, but just know that New Year's may be a trigger for you that you may not have otherwise expected, because I was totally caught off guard, but then after I thought about it, it totally made sense. Like this was the last year that this person existed, and now I'm moving forward and they're not, and time is marching on, and I just want to stop and be in this place where she was still here, so just, I was having a hard time accepting that time was moving, and then over the years, I feel like it definitely has gotten easier. Like Daree said, I haven't felt as empty. And in fact, so like it's been 6 years now. Each year, we still hang up her stocking, and the next year we did the thing again with the letters. I want to say by about year 3, like each year we got less and less and less. And by about year 3, I was like, you know what? I don't feel like this is serving me anymore. It's feeling more stressful to try and solicit these letters from people. And then it's disappointing when I don't get as many. And, so I had to recognize like, okay, I can let go of this tradition. It's not serving me anymore. It's being more of a hindrance to my grief. So I guess just a caution that if you choose a tradition to memorialize your person around a holiday, and it involves other people doing something, just recognize that that's a possibility, that other people may not fulfill their part of what you're expecting, and just allow space for that so that you're not disappointed and discouraged. Because that's where I had to get, is like, okay, I can't expect my validation to come from these external sources. You know, I had to just recognize, like, okay, this was a thing. I'm glad that people did it when they did, but they're not doing it now. And it doesn't mean that they don't still love my baby, and they don't still love me, and that they don't still remember. It's just, it wasn't their kid, you know, and so they're not as connected to it. And so it's okay.
Right. Right.
And so I had to really like make peace with that. And then actually just this year I was looking, so we also have a special Christmas tree that we set up with all of Emily's special ornaments on it. And it's just her tree. And I thought to myself the other day, her stocking is up as well, and it's completely empty. And I was like, what am I going to do with this empty stocking? Like, why am I still hanging her stocking? Like, it's important to me that she's part of this celebration, but at the same time, I'm like, it feels like it's just taking up empty space, you know? And I had to really make peace with that thought, because I was like, how dare you think that your daughter's stocking is taking up empty space, you know? But at the same time, like, there was just this piece of me that was like, I can let this go. You know, and I probably will still hang the stocking because it's, you know, a tradition and she's part of the family and it's there, but just recognizing that it's okay, you know, that I can let these things go. And it doesn't mean that I don't still love my kid and that I'm forgetting or moving on or whatever. Right. I'm just acknowledging that the grief is evolving and it's changing, and I can change and grow with it, and it's okay. And, you know, like, yeah, just, there is hope, and the farther out you get from it, it gets easier. And like you said, you know, it's not that it goes away, it just gets less heavy.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I love this message that you're sharing about being able to let go of some things, because that's also a really important part of the grief process, right? There really comes a time where you feel content to let some of the more physical things go. And it's true, you're not letting them go. In a way, it's, you know, I mean, it's similar with your own living children, right? I mean, I have recently moved. So I've gone through boxes and boxes of my children's kindergarten paintings, right? Or pictures, or and I was speaking to a lady who said that she had recently she saved every piece of paper that her daughter ever created from childhood on, right? Because it was so special to her. And she was moving, she got it all boxed up, she brought it to her daughter, and her daughter's like, Mom, I don't want any of this. You know, it was special to her. And yet she, the person who created it, was able to let it go. And it helped Mom to be able to let it go. I wonder with our loved ones if they would also like to see us be able to let some things go. You know, of course we don't let them go. Of course they matter and are important. But I wonder if they're thinking, you better get my stocking up this year, Mom, or I'm not going to know that you love me.
Right.
Probably not a thought. Just like when Sydney's 18 and she leaves home, she's probably going to say, I don't know what you want me to do with my kindergarten, you know, certificate of advancement, Mom. I don't want it.
Yeah.
You know, because that is the nature of life, is that we continue to grow. And so maybe that's just a normal thing. But I'm glad you brought that up. I have a big version of that. You know, Steve and I, we brought our 4-month-old baby. Our youngest was 4 months old when we moved into the house that we lived in when he passed away. And he passed away in our home. And so for one thing, I loved our house. It was where we raised our kids. I never thought we'd ever leave. And then when I met Michael, who is also widowed, we got married a few years after our spouses passed away. I told him, I said, I'm not willing to relocate. So he with so much compassion, moved into this home that I had shared with my husband for almost 25 years. And you know, there were ways that we made it our own, but it was interesting. We had friends who had similarly had remarried, and they built a home together. And I remember my friend Brad telling me, "You're going to want to move. You're going to do it. You're going to want to." And I thought, I don't think so. You know, I'm never going to move. And it was interesting. Michael was so patient. You know, we had this property at the river. It's beautiful out here. There was no reason for me not to want to be here, other than that being here was painful. It was a painful reminder of this lost future that I thought I was going to have. But you know, he suggested, you know, well, maybe, what do you think about moving out here? And so I dragged my feet, and we worked with an architect, and every delay was fine, you know, and now we're, you know, 2 years later, we've moved in finally last Friday. So this Christmas will be a new Christmas for me in a new location. But it's interesting how allowing myself to go through the process with the time that I needed has made it a joyous experience for me. Like, I got to where I was excited that I was going to leave the house. And I wasn't excited because I was leaving a house of memories or the house that I shared with Steve. It was that I'm in a different phase of life now. So this is a normal phase. I'm an empty nester. Mm-hmm. The house we had was a house where we raised 4 children. It's a big house with lots of bedrooms and a yard, and I don't need or want that responsibility anymore. And that would be normal if Steve had been alive. We would have normally said, let's downsize, let's move to, you know, to this other place. And so, I'm not sure what my point was, other than I started rambling.
You gave yourself permission to get there. You didn't rush into, okay, we just got married, now we have to leave behind this house. You allowed yourself the space to get there on your own. You know, and so like you said, once it happened, then you were excited about it. Whereas if you had just done it because, okay, I'm getting married, we have to move, I think you would have created even more mourning and grief for yourself, because you also left that house when you weren't ready, you know? Yes.
Because at the beginning, it would have felt like I was leaving Steve behind.
Yeah.
And, you know, and my first Christmas, Steve passed away in May of 2021. And my first Christmas, I was really lucky, really blessed that 3 of my 4 kids were able to come home, and we were able to be together. And so we all had kind of a weird first Christmas together. You know, there was joy because one of my sons had a new baby, and so we had joy around that. But then we all had, you know, the grief of, this isn't like it was, Dad's not here. So actually the next year, we purposely decided to go somewhere else for Christmas. We went on a trip together. Mm-hmm. And we did that the year after. But now, again, I'm back to, I don't want to be gone. I want to be home. So there's a transition you go through from the holidays feeling empty and weird and strange because the people you love aren't with you, to this is a new phase, a new time, and being able to create a space for new memories, new traditions. You know, I've also found that New Year's, once I got to a point where I thought, okay, I am going to find someone and create a new future with a new person. I can remember for a couple of years I was on a dating app, and I saw this phenomenon the first New Year's, and then the second New Year's. I saw that the widowers all kind of came out after Christmas. It was like New Year's, and all of a sudden there were all these widowers on the site, that's what I wanted to find somebody who had a similar experience as me. So So it was interesting because I would ask them, why did you decide to join this dating app now? And, well, I made it through the holidays, so I figured I might as well give it a chance. and maybe that's part of the message of hope for the New Year's, that you will make it through the holidays. You'll make it, and you'll experience what you experience. But the New Year really, it's an artificial boundary, but it's still a marking in time that you can use as an opportunity to look forward to the new possibilities of what the future might have in store. And even if New Year's has a sneaker wave of pain like you experienced, Chris, or even if New Year's is still in the middle of your grief season as you experienced, Daree, there's still hope that comes just by looking that there is a future out there and you're a part of it. You're alive. You're here. You can grow and learn and experience and love. And I think it's really good to allow ourselves to have some hope that comes with the season of New Year. Because pretty soon spring will come, that time of rebirth, and then summer as we prepare for the holidays again. So that's our message. Is there anything either of you would like to share or add before we close?
I just want to echo that letting go of things can be freeing. The March of Dimes was something that I did every year, and it was this huge undertaking. I would do this giant yard sale, and it would take months to collect everything and sort and do all the things. And I loved how it brought people together and brought them to me. But then it started being harder to get people to come and help. And I remember thinking, I can't let this go because it's how I honor my son. And then March of Dimes made it easy for me. They stopped doing a walk, and so I was like mad. So I was like, fine, I'm not doing it anymore. So it gave me permission to say, you know what, this isn't serving me anymore. And I still love the March of Dimes. I think it's an amazing organization. I'll help them in other ways, but that I don't have to do that anymore. And so that was really freeing for me. And to just letting go of the guilt. My children that are in heaven are with me always. They're always here. And no matter what it looks like outside of me, I know that they're here. And that's enough for me.
I love that, Daree. Chris, anything else you wanted to share?
I just really liked what you said about hope. And, it can be really challenging to see that when you're in the thick of it. And, to have that farther down the road perspective and be like, man, 5-6 years out is really a long time from right now. And, it's hard to get to that point where you think someday this will not be as hard as it is right now. But I promise you'll get there. And there is hope. And so just try to find that in any way that you can, whether it's through others who have been through a similar experience, whether it's taking some time for yourself. Like you said, just be grateful that you're alive. If you can even just start with a breath, get through the next second. Sometimes you're just taking it moment by moment and recognizing, okay, I made it through that moment. Here comes the next one, but whatever that feels like for you, just recognize that there is hope and it gets better.
Amen. Amen to all you've said. Thank you so much. Thanks for having this conversation with me. I've really enjoyed it. And just wanted to repeat again that we're always happy to share other people's stories. So if you have a story or you know someone who has a story of loss or grief and how you've worked through it or how you've seen them work through it, please reach out to us, goodgriefbeliever@gmail.com. And for now, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We wish you all the best in 2026.